Johnny Manziel. I think at this point he's known for more of his impeccable fallout. Getting drafted by the Browns in 2014, playing only 5 games that season where he put up an immaculate quarterback rating of a 7.8 before only playing 9 games the following season and eventually being released, going to Canada, doing all over there, before finally making his way to fan-controlled football. People will always remember him as possibly being one of the biggest busts the NFL has ever seen, up there with the likes of Jamarcus Russell and Ryan Leaf. And while it forever stained his reputation, there is something about this young quarterback that I want to answer, a question a young man asked me, and it's, was Johnny Manziel ever that good to begin with? So grab some popcorn, take a seat, and let me blow your mind, because you can bet your sweet ass he was.
Snap from Patrick Lewis, 4-man Alabama rush, got him. No, they didn't. Oh my gracious! Yep. How about that? Can't teach that, can you? And you can't defend that.
Johnny came into a Texas A&M team that was ready to turn the corner. It's not like they just had a bad quarterback. In fact, they were coming off a really solid starter in Ryan Tannehill, who was a first-round pick. So I think for many, it was hard to imagine a serious improvement at that position. They were also bringing in a wide receiver by the name of Mike Evans, and their running back core would consist of 3 future NFL players with Ben Milena, Christian Michael, and Trey Williams. So there was no doubt that at the very least, this offense should be solid, with the only caveat being that they were leaving the defensive light Big 12 conference and heading into the ground and pound showing of the SEC, and led by a true freshman at quarterback. Many thought it would be a bloodbath heading into their first game of the season against a top 25 ranked Florida Gators team. But what would happen in that first half would stun the football world. This first 2 plays went about as bad as they could, leading to the Aggies staring down a 3rd and 17, where Manziel would step back, appear to pass on the quarterback draw, but then head forward, make a man miss, and embrace contact from Gators on either side of him, and it was a first down A&M, and we were off to the races. 10 plays later, they'd be setting up for a field goal before the ensuing drive would be a 13-play, 81-yard marathon capped off by an electrifying 11-yard run for a touchdown by Johnny. The hype he had coming out of high school was very, very real. Now, did he have some accuracy issues? Sure. Was his decision-making a little slow? Maybe a hair. But did he have the athleticism, speed, and shiftiness to make all of this seem trivial? Abso-f***ing-lutely. Now, their next drive was literally the work of mostly 2 plays, one of which being a screen and the other being a Statue of Liberty reverse pass, but hey, they were huge underdogs this game, so they had to let it all out. But after one final drive stalling out before the half, the Gators would lock in on their offensive plan in the second half, and the Aggies would never even make it to midfield. But that balanced, let's beat them at their own game offense A&M was running was about to be thrown out like a case when the police didn't read Miranda her rights, or whatever the hell that means, in favor of a new strategy. Give Manziel the ball way more. Because the following game, Johnny was about to break out. In exactly 3 quarters of play, Manziel was going to explode onto the scene. I'm talking about throwing for 294 yards and 4 touchdowns to be accompanied by another 124 yards on the ground and 2 more touchdowns as this A&M offense trounced SMU to the tune of 48 points, with Johnny accounting for 36 of those and 418 yards of the 600 they would put up. They also would go on to just whoop an FCS opponents before Manziel showed us what he was really about. Arkansas would come down to College Station on a fateful big noon kickoff where the game would be close for a grand total of a quarter and a half, where Arkansas would be able to keep up with this high-powered Aggie offense until A&M got the ball back and it was off to the races. Manziel at this point was taking huge strides. He was getting way better at his pass accuracy, his pocket awareness, and with the same mobility as before, he would torch them with a final score of 58-10 as Manziel would throw for 453 yards, 3 touchdowns, and run for another 104 yards with an additional touchdown there as well. And it wouldn't stop with Arkansas. A&M would march into Ole Miss, who would do everything in their power to stop Manziel, and ultimately were succeeding, as the only points A&M had come up with came off of a huge run by Milana, as well as a field goal and a pick 6, while also stripping Manziel late in the 3rd quarter to put Ole Miss up by 10. Manziel would throw another interception early in the 4th. Ole Miss would be forced to punt, And here we get to see what just made him so special. They start at the 11-yard line, but a sack moves the ball back to the 1 with 7 minutes left. But a 32-yard pass to Mike Evans, a 36-yard rush by Milana, set Manziel to drop back, see nobody down the field, makes a man miss. He finds his lane, he weaves, he woves, he scores. The Aggies are now down by 3. Ole Miss would turn over the ball on downs, and then Manziel would make short work of the Ole Miss defense, this time with poise, finding Mike Evans before handing it off twice, and then just this gorgeous 20-yard dot over the shoulder of Ryan Swope where it couldn't be contested. And when it mattered, Johnny was just brilliant. You would continue to see this as they'd roll through a very good La Tech team, as Manziel almost 600 yards of offense would not just be key, but necessary, as he would run away with this game literally in the fourth quarter with a 72-yard running touchdown as the key points to A&M's 59-57 victory. Now against a very strong LSU team, they would be able to completely shut down Johnny. They picked him off 3 times and held him to only 27 yards on the ground across his 17 carries, but now would be a good time to show you how much they relied on Manziel for their offense to function. From game 1, where Manziel had 30 passes and 17 carries, he threw the ball 56 times this game while still carrying the rock 17. But Johnny getting shut down would awaken a monster in him. The following week against Auburn, he would put up such a destructive first half against them that by the third quarter, he was back on the bench while the Aggies had a 49-7 lead after throwing for 260 yards and 2 touchdowns while rushing for another 90 yards and 3 touchdowns in 27 minutes of play. He then roll into a number 15 Mississippi State and walk all over them by starting them out with a 24-0 lead in the first half before getting that as high as 31-0 and cruising out to the end of the game before the ultimate litmus test every college quarterback who's ever played between 2007 and 2023 had to face, and it was taking on a 2012 Alabama team that were currently ranked number 1. But Manziel would put on arguably one of his best performances ever. And it wasn't just through his yards, only throwing for 253 and 2 touchdowns while rushing for another 92, but how he got them. Because this Alabama defense was absolutely brutal, holding 8 out of 9 of the teams they had played before this to 2 or less touchdowns, with the exception being that same LSU team scoring only 17 points the week prior. But Manziel and crew would drive down on score on every single one of the first 3 drives to become the highest scoring team against Alabama so far this year, where it's best shown by this play. Manziel takes a snap, doesn't see much, steps up in the pocket, runs into his own lineman, fumbles the ball, gets it back before it hits the ground, turns around, spins, finds his footing, immediately sees a man wide open, throws it in for a touchdown. This was 2012, so virality was just starting to become a thing, and this was about as close to a viral football play as you were going to get. You just did not see much like this, as Johnny would continue to slice and dice his Alabama defense, making no critical mistakes, keeping them in the game until they eventually won 29-25 in an unbelievable win. They would go on to beat Sam Houston State and throttle Missouri in the following weeks, and then take on Oklahoma in the Cotton Bowl, while that Alabama team would go on to convincingly win the national championship, with this loss being their only one of the season, showing just how unbelievably incredible Manziel was. And it wasn't just people like me who thought that. He would go on to win the Heisman that year as well, to become the first true freshman ever to do it, and now I wish I could say his second year was even better, but realistically it wasn't. I mean, he did throw the ball way better, completing 69% of his passes for 400 more yards than the previous season on less attempts, but ultimately he was less of a weapon because he ran for about half as many yards as the previous season with 12 less touchdowns on the ground, and pulled his team to do less impressive things, winning none of the matchups against ranked opponents except for a Chick-fil-A victory bowl against Duke. But that 2012 season didn't just make Johnny Manziel a household name. It generated hype for him beyond the years he would even be relevant. His CFL debut, his fan-controlled football run, all of those leagues trying to get just a pinch of that Johnny football play that came over a decade ago, is why I believe that one insane, magical season can really generate a lifetime of hype.